Hi and hello, watch fans, and welcome to another edition of the Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker, Rob Nuds, calling in from Villa Sarasan in Geneva for the 2025 edition of Time to Watches. I am joined by the Managing Director of Fears Watch Company, Nicholas Bowman-Scargill, all the way from Bristol in the United Kingdom. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Day 4, and I've still got my voice somehow.
Yeah, it's incredible. What a timber. Have you survived? You're looking fresh-faced and ready to go again, even after you hosted a wonderful event for many friends and colleagues last night, the Fears Beers with Fears.
Yes,
Beers and Beers.
Yeah, beers and fears and tears afterwards.
Oh, I hope there weren't too many of those. Everyone was still smiling by the time I left, but it was greatly appreciated. Everybody loves those get-togethers that have become an annual tradition now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. Yeah, it's always nice because it's kind of like you make Geneva home from home. It's we always host it in a brasserie that I first discovered in, I think, 2010. And so it's one of the places I love to go. I always invite people to go there. And yeah, it's so fun to have everyone there together.
And last night we made a, I would say, shocking, bordering on uncomfortable discovery, which you might have been able to drink out of memory, but unfortunately, because I was sober, I remember the literal translation of the bar's name.
Oh no, yes, you explained this to me, and I was like, fortunately, my simple excuse, I don't speak French, so I don't actually know what the bar's name translates to. But yes, you told me, and I was, I'll try and persuade them to change the name.
Yeah, well, now we have a good reason to not learn French, because apparently it means something to do with the bar of the heavy spitting.
Yes, which is weird, because that square is the same name as the bar.
Yeah, the spitting square.
Yeah, bizarre. Bizarre.
Oh, well, yeah.
But at least the beer is good. So
the beer's fantastic. Yeah, no one would ever spit that out, that's for sure. But, this is why you travel, to be exposed to these different cultures, isn't that so? So here we are in the culture of watchmaking, the very heartbed of horology, Geneva itself. You've been here for 4 days. You've been on your feet, dashing around, as you always are, making the most of this event. What was it you were hoping to get out of it for Fears?
So for us, it's, this is obviously quite a significant investment for the company, because not only am I here, but also 4 of the other members of the Fears team, flying everyone out, hotels, the beers, of course, But the great thing with this is, and the reason I've been keen to do this for a second year, is because everyone is here. This becomes, for 1 week, the epicenter of the watch world. And for us, we have 3 main people we want to meet here. Firstly, retailers, as we're growing our Fears authorized stockist network across the world, but also media. So even though we have great relationships with a lot of the English-speaking media, the whole world doesn't speak English. It is a fine, large place. So it's great to meet people who may not have seen or handled a Fears watch in person. And then finally, it's the collectors. When you've got the everyone coming here, the most serious, the most hardcore collectors, they all come in for this week, and perfect opportunity to introduce them to our brand from Bristol.
Well, yeah, of course it is. And what's the response been like to those retailers, the visitors that you've had to the stand?
It's been incredible. And I think what, for me, I've really appreciated this year, and my colleagues have, is how many more people have heard of Fears than a year ago. We've had some incredible launches in the last 12 months. We've also spent a lot of time traveling the world, doing events, doing a lot more marketing, more reviews, and, engaging more with the community. And it's just wonderful to see that, a number of people coming out going, yeah, I know of Fears, and they know the story. And it was kind of like, wow, this is incredible, because where we are in Bristol, you sometimes can find yourself not necessarily in a bubble, but you think like this is the extent of the watch world.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly realize there's someone from Mexico who knows all about your watches and absolutely loves the story and wants to get hands on. And you're thinking, oh, wow, that's incredible. So yeah, it's been a really good response, a really great week so far.
It must be so gratifying to know that all of that effort that's being put in by you personally and the team around your small, tight-knit, familial team is really paying dividends, and it's snowballing now. The marketing is taking on a life of its own, as it were, and going beyond your initial efforts and spreading throughout the industry. I mean, it's amazing to think that a decade ago, Fears wasn't here.
Yes, I mean, as we're gearing up to the 10th anniversary of the restart and the 180th anniversary of the original launch next year, it is that kind of realization of like, yeah, you know, even 5 years ago, there was no Fears team,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think it's really important for my colleagues to realize when they're here, like actually what we're building together. You know, yes, I'm the face of the company. Yes, I'm the refounder. I'm the 6th generation. But really, the reason where we are today is because of them. And it's been really interesting this week compared to previous events in Geneva. I'm not in all the meetings. You know, I'm seeing my team just getting on with it and doing it. And that's really good. That's really important. You know, they're empowered to do that.
I mean, neither you nor I have kids, but does it feel a little bit like watching, you know, how one would imagine like a child like growing up and going out into the world on their own and having a life of their own and, you know, not having that control over everything? Because for the first few years, it was just you, and it wasn't just you working at Fears. It was you putting everything on the line, making sacrifices, personal sacrifices, working night shifts at Asda to keep things going, you know, when you first...
that was during the pandemic. That was crazy time.
I mean, it's insane because people look at this industry from the outside and they see luxury, right? They think, oh, look at them all swanning about their villa in Geneva, having a lovely time quaffing champagne and smoking cigars. And they think that everybody in it has had an easy ride, you know? And it's easy to think that if you don't know the people behind the brands, but to know like the graft that you put in, how much you risked, how many hours of your life you gave over to this brand to get it to this point that it's able to grow, not without you, but to grow alongside you as well, like to almost feed back to you like what you've put into it and to show you like what you've created. It must be so satisfying to know that you did it, really. I mean, you're over the mountain now.
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you to say. I think it's there's probably never going to be a moment where I can fully relax and stop and reflect and look backwards. I'm always very paranoid of that. I always think the moment you stop and acknowledge any kind of success that you may have achieved is the moment you begin to get complacent and potentially plateau. But talking about the team and sort of got, you know, almost feeling like a kind of father towards them, it has been. There was one moment. It was yesterday actually. We had our head of commercial Daniel talking through the collection and the upcoming releases to one retailer. Next to him was Laurence, our marketing manager, and she was introducing the brand to a retailer. Lee, our designer, was then talking to a collector. And then one of our very good retailers from the United States, Little Treasury, they came to have their meeting to be shown the new pieces coming up during the year. And we haven't got a seat. And my colleague Harvey, who is he's in the commercial department as an executive, you know, he got the folder with all of the boards because we like to present with boards rather than iPads. And he goes, right, I'm going to take Steve from Little Treasure. I'm going to take him upstairs. I'm going to get him a coffee and I'm going to do this on my own. And he just did that. And it was amazing. You know, the feedback was fantastic. And, you know, I kind of had that moment where I looked around and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, it's not that it just happens automatically. It's the fact that everyone is so passionate. They're not doing a job. They're doing a career. And yeah, I mean, you know, it's long days, it's long hours, and yet everyone is still on the stand with a smile. Last night, we were at the event, you know, our event till midnight, and everyone was still chatting and engaging and working the room, you know, and it was just like, yeah, I really, there are moments like that where that's when I stop and feel very proud. Everything else, I never want to take for granted, and I just keep looking forward. But seeing the team develop, that for me is incredible.
It doesn't surprise me in the least that you're a man that looks at this situation from a outside perspective. It doesn't include himself in that analysis. That, you know, you appreciate things more when you see it in others, because like that self-congratulation is not something that I think is any part of your personality whatsoever. As you say, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about building something. And I guess when many people start brands, or in your case, restart your family brand, the goal is to create something that will outlive your time with the brand, to survive, to stand on its own 2 feet, and to see those people that you've brought on. And yeah, I don't know whether you really feel like you're sort of educating them or whatnot, but you created a culture and you've led by example, and they walk into that and they absorb it and then they interpret it in their own way. And so you've got these new distinct characters that are just towing the Fears line. It's great to see. I mean, to me, it just shows that a brand knows exactly what it is. It knows exactly the message it wants to send, and it's sending it like very few others.
I really appreciate you saying that, because, you know, if we go back 9 years ago when I restarted Fears, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. Didn't really know how to get there, but I knew where I wanted to go. And it was also a thing of going, right, if I ever said it out loud, it would sound completely overambitious for a tiny brand at the time, one person with one watch, but we've stuck to that plan. I'm someone who, with my company, with how we operate, with the brand, with what we create, we try and avoid too much hype. We try and avoid trends. The fact is, Fears, I want Fears to outlive me. I'm the fourth managing director. We want there to be a fifth, a sixth, And so even though I own the company and I restarted it and I'm the managing director, I don't actually feel anything more than just the current custodian. And it's weird because, Fears is me. This is my entire life. It's very funny. Over dinner earlier in the week, someone said, "Oh, so when you're not doing Fears, like what else do you do?" And it was kind of one of those very scary, soul-searching moments where I thought, "Oh heck, I don't actually do anything else. Like I have hobbies, but I have no time for them." And I don't feel bad about that. But I'm also very aware that the company isn't me, and it can't be. Yes, I have to be the face of it. I'll talk about it, but actually, for it to grow and breathe as an entity, it can't just be the Nicholas Bowman Scargill show, right? It's got to be about the watches. And in fact, this week we opened a new retailer. I've never met them. They didn't ask to speak to me. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know my story. What they loved was the brand, the product, the quality, the design, and that sold it to them. And for me, that's a moment I do feel really proud, because you're going, okay, it's very, very easy, especially young brands, and we're old and young. It's very easy for young brands to slip into the trap of it becomes you. And there is also a thing of going, actually, let's be honest. And I said this to Mike France and Christopher Ward once, to set up and run a watch company, you have to have a bit of an ego. To look around this incredible industry with, thousands of companies around the world and to go, no, but I think I can do something better or something different. Yeah. So you're dealing with fighting that sense of ego and going, no, this isn't about me. It's about Fears. And what is Fears? Well, Fears is the heritage. Fears is the legacy. Fears is the product. But Fears is the team, And so, that's very important.
So what we're saying is you never really own Fears Watch Company. You merely look after it for the next generation.
I think so, but I might get sued if I use that line.
Oh, my words, come for me if you want. But I'll tell you what, it's brilliant to hear. It's brilliant to see. It's brilliant to be involved with, and only as an outside observer, just to see it and to get the chance to see you and the team around the world spreading that message and showing this wonderful product. And that's an interesting thing that you touched upon, because it's come up a couple of times this week, how the branding of a watch is often what will get a company their first sale, and the product becomes the ambassador on the wrist and will either get the second, third, fourth, or the sales from people that see someone wearing that watch because of its quality and because of its design, timelessness, and class. But for someone to come to your booth or stand, shall we say, cold, and to see the product without knowing the story, without knowing the brand, I also would take a great deal of satisfaction in that, as you did, because it means that, okay, we're not selling someone a story and not backing it up with true quality, with true long-term enjoyment on the wrist. And that is what you are giving, and that is wonderful to see. Have you released any novelties this fair?
We have. Well, I say this fair. I mean, it's we actually launched it a week ago, last Friday. We wanted to get it out there in the public's mind just before the fair.
Smart move.
It worked brilliantly because, a lot of the big brands are under embargo. So at Watches and Wonders, a lot of them can't talk about anything until the day the fair opens. So there is a kind of, there are those weird few weeks where everything's predictions and trends, and so it's good for that, but it's also really, really important because it means people have seen it, had a weekend to digest it. Then when they walk into the room, they go, that's on my list. I need to go and see that.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. I think Rolex copied you, actually. They saw it and engineered a leak of the live
drive. I know, exactly. I know. And that's a whole
the old Fears have shown the new watch. We better get and follow the leader, quick.
Exactly. But no, and I mean, it's also that thing of going, the piece we've revealed, the new Fears Arnos, which is our new third core family of watches. And it takes its inspiration from the tall, slim, elegant, rectangular pieces from the 20s and 30s, but reimagined for today. You know, Fears is a British luxury watch company with heritage. We're not a heritage watch company. And sometimes people think I'm having one of my dyslexic moments and getting my words muddled. But it is actually a very, a very nuanced difference of going, no, we are imagining what the company would be making today rather than just relying on the archive. And with this piece, it's been incredibly well received. You know, rectangular watches are niche. They're not for everyone. I've had a lot of people this week say to me, you know, I don't like rectangular watches. I wouldn't wear a rectangular watch, but I really like this watch.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's really interesting because, you know, everyone in their watch collecting has bias for brand, bias for shape, size, you know, all kinds of things. And so if someone's able to fight their own bias, which they may not even be aware of, and then go, it's not for me, but I like it, that's amazing. But what's been incredible is the number of people who go, I would never think of a rectangular watch, or I'm not a fan of them, put it on their wrist, and they just fall in love, and they've gone, this is amazing. I think it's, the phrase I keep hearing is the most Fearsy Fears watch we've done. You know, this is the most like Fears watch that, you know, could come from the company in its elegance, its refinement, and all of that. And so I encourage people to have a look and see if you agree with me, because it's also kind of a beginning hint of kind of the continued evolution of the refinement of our design language.
Refined is the word. The build quality of this watch is incredible. I love the little touches where you can see the money has been spent very, very wisely, especially with the hands. I'm in love with the hands. And the curved case back. Oh my God. It wears on the wrist like nothing else. So please go and find one of those watches. Try it on your wrist. Visit Fears at any event at which they're showing. Go and find a retailer somewhere around the world and strap them on and see which one you love the most. And let the team know. Nicholas, thank you once again for your time, for your contribution to watchmaking, and for making Time to Watch as a much more enjoyable event for everybody.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
One of our favourite people in the watch industry, one of the key members of the expanded TRTS family, a man that we never get tired of spending time with, chatting to, musing over the intricacies of life and watch design. Nicholas Bowman-Scargill, always a pleasure. Alon.
Yes. The Arnos. They launched only one model this year, and they hit a home run. I love Fears watches. I have 3 by now. First Fears watch that I bought as a consumer is the Archival 1930, their rectangular watch, my first ever rectangular watch. And although I've loved the Reversal like forever, I've never owned one longer than 24 hours. And the Archival is my first one. The second one is the Econeutra Rivanera. So they became my gateway drug, the Fears rectangular watch. It was a limited edition, a replica or an homage to their original from their back catalog. The second one was the Brunswick Jump Hour with the coral dial that I fell in love with head over heels. Actually, during the lunch we had with Daniel and Nicholas, where you were present, Rob, and you saw me ordering it on the spot off an image, I believe. And I loved the gimlet so much, but I wasn't at British Watchmakers Day. So when I was in London, straight after the Geneva International Watch Week, I bought one pre-owned in London while visiting London. So those are my 3 Fears watches. Now, how can Fears not bring back the rectangular watch after such a hit? But I love the fact that they didn't make a dial variation or a different color of the original. No, Fears did what Fears does best. They designed a complete new watch. And how can you not do so with Lee on your team? Sheer elegance. I love everything about it. I can't even criticize one single point. What was your takeaway, Rob?
Well, I think my favourite Fears of all time is probably the Archival Sand Seconds. That's just a classy piece. It's a gorgeous bit of watchmaking, lovely restrained design, beautiful execution, top quality, feels like $1 million on the wrist. Great alternative to a Cartier Tank or something like that. My first rectangular watch was the Hamilton Ardmore quartz powered years ago that I got in a massive end of year swatch sale when I worked for the Swatch Group, and I still have it actually, and I do enjoy wearing a rectangular watch, but there aren't many that catch my eye like the Archival did. I prefer the Archival to the Arnos. I'm not as much of a fan as you of circles within rectangles, but I don't question much of what Lee does, to be honest. If you've not been on his Instagram profile, which is called 1 Hour Watch, then go and check it out, follow it. He is an endless font of creativity, and it's deeply impressive to see what he comes out with on a daily basis most of the time. So my favorite Fears watches, there's a couple from the archives as well, not just the Archival. I love the Brunswick Brown on the bund strap. It's a bit of a strange duck, but I love it myself. I like a bund strap. I think they kind of fit the persona that I convince myself I have, kind of like Indiana Jones. I don't think anyone else thinks that, just me in my head. As such, I very much like their New Brunswick 40 Odyssey edition, which was recently released. It's much more rugged by virtue of its applied numerals and then the fact it's presented on this fabric. I don't know if it's Erica's original strap. It's certainly in that style. It's got the same kind of hook closure. Really cool. Did something I didn't think Fears could do, actually. And they took their Brunswick model and they made it into an adventure watch, which is, yeah, awesome. I think there's lots of ways they can go with this. I think that they could do definitely a blasted case version of the Odyssey. I think a titanium case would look super cool. Playing around the strap again, some more like insignia on the dials. This could turn out to be a pretty interesting military style timepiece that we never really expected from the brand. So hats off to the team, always working hard, always on the road, traveling around. Since we saw them in Geneva, I know they've been to Singapore. I saw them having a lot of fun there, and completely different landscape from the capital of watch culture. And yeah, we wish them all the best, and we can't wait to see them all again. I guess we will probably catch up with them now at the end of summer when we all head back to Geneva for the Geneva Watch Days, and I personally can't wait.
Well, two things. Yes, on what you said about titanium and mil-spec. And I actually saw them before they went to Singapore and Hong Kong, because I had an after party with them in London straight after Geneva Watch Days. So we drank a lot with them. Well, you actually didn't. I did.
Yeah.
Both at their Fears beers as well, and the TRTS dinner, and almost every night. But we had an after party in London, and guess what I was drinking with Nicholas, Daniel, and Lee?
It's got to be a gimlet.
Yes, sir. And that drink is as scrumptious, as beautiful as the actual watch is.
Well, that's the first time in I don't know how many episodes. This is going to be like 240 episodes or something that we've had the word scrumptious on the Real Time Show. That's wholesome, isn't it? That's very Enid Blyton of us. Yeah, well, I imbibed a few of those gimlets myself with Nicholas on his birthday, because I went down to Bristol to go out with the team to celebrate the boss man aging one more year. He looks fantastic for his age. Great skincare regime. I should probably take a leaf out of his book, to be honest. Now I'm about to tick over to 40. Oh dear, don't mention that, Robert. Okay, let's get out of this this terrifying tunnel I've just driven myself into, and resolve to get Fears back on the show as soon as possible. And let's pitch a Adventure Brunswick option to them as well for a nice little collaboration. How do you feel about that?
Yes.